Calling Raven.
Payback time.
Come with me if you want to live.
You just don't cut it off!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. This is Backtrack Cinema. My name is Jason. I got my good friend Caleb beside me from the Dark Aether Files podcast. And we're at the end, closing on to the end anyway, of talking about the Monsterverse on my channel, watch parties on his, of other Godzilla and King Kong movies. And today we're going to be doing Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong, getting ready for Godzilla X Kong. So, whatever you guys can do to help the channel, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff, like, share the videos, just tell the world that we are awesome and we'd appreciate it. And Caleb, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to get into one of my favorites in this Monsterverse franchise. Very excited.
Yeah, after I was just writing down some of the characters, the actors' names, just in case I forget, which I forgot already, but that's okay. And I just realized that it was Michael Deltry, who did Trick or Treat, did Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the directors they're choosing that they chose for these movies. Adam Wingard does Godzilla vs. Kong, and the next one that's coming out in the theaters this week.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another one I think shows a lot of promise for a lot of franchises. I think he's a pretty decent director. And yeah, I like both these directors very much. So I think they're really good choices for this. But, last week we talked Skull Island and Godzilla 2014, beginning of the Monsterverse. And now we're going to continue this and just see how we all fall on this. So we're going to start with Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Just did a second watch this evening. Very fun movie as far as I'm concerned. The general consensus I get, or I hear anyway, is that, it took Godzilla from 2014, said the complaints about it. We didn't get enough Godzilla, and oh my goodness, do you get a lot of Godzilla and other monsters in this thing. It is a one fun popcorn flick, I tell you. A lot of fun, this movie. A little bit of pacing problems, I think, here and there. But I do really like the action in this movie. And now the thing I hear is that the characters are shit. I won't disagree with that. I mean, I didn't think they were terribly good. I do like Serizawa, but not really thrilled about how he's handled. But what about you? What are your initial thoughts of this movie?
Well, I'll say this, that I was excited for this movie. Like the build up leading up to it, I was hyped. Seeing the trailers, seeing the monsters that were going to be in there, it took me back to the Showa era with Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where essentially this movie serves as like a modern interpretation of it, you could say. Now, does it deliver? In certain aspects, yes, 100%. The monster fights are pretty cool. It's a good popcorn flick. That being said, the characters are fairly weak. Some characters' motivations can be questionable, especially given the logic and reasoning that would come, like certain characters' hatred for certain monsters. I can understand. It's just, I guess, for the story that they're trying to tell, it it does fine. It's just I think that after Godzilla -1 came out, of course, that was years later after this film, but getting a taste of really good character development in a Godzilla film, um, it does have me somewhat concerned for Godzilla X Kong, just because the way that characters are handled in the MonsterVerse, they're not really the focus. Like they're there as sort of supplementary, and I always like to think of it as balance. Like Serizawa does say that nature has an order, a power to restore balance. My idea of balance would be to have your good human cast to supplement when the monster action isn't going on, because the complaints that come up are, why are we focusing on these human characters? I want to get to the monsters. When you have that in a Godzilla film, you know that the human cast is weak. That you're not being drawn into the human story, and therefore you're going to hate a large percentage of the movie, because really the human story or the human scenes, I should say, take up more screen time than the monster action. So in order to sort of supplement that issue, you need to have a good human story. And unfortunately, Godzilla King of the Monsters doesn't necessarily have that. And it's a shame, because you have some pretty good actors here. I mean, Vera Farmiga, her from The Conjuring. Ken Watanabe, I mean, he's a legend. Kyle Chandler, I've seen him in a few things. I mean, he was in King Kong 2005. So Charles Dance. Okay, need I say more? You have a lot of strong people in this film. It's almost Marvelized storytelling for a human perspective. What I mean by that is you got some cheesy dialogue with some misplaced humor, and the drama isn't 100% there. You know what I mean? Like, you have good human storytelling in Godzilla -1. It's something that draws you in. And then they play in the Godzilla threat, right? And for King of the Monsters specifically, you had a great opportunity to show the scale of Ghidorah's destructive power, because they go through the motions of telling us why Ghidorah is this big threat, and it's not merely just because of our first introduction to him. It's also the backstory that there were cave paintings of showing Godzilla fighting Ghidorah, and they reveal what we pretty much all knew, that Ghidorah is an alien. He's a monster from outer space. So that opens the door to more space monsters that we know from the franchise.
And he's fucking up the balance.
Yeah. So you have you have an interesting story. You have it there. It's just the way the humans react to it is not the best. Yeah, it's not completely terrible. I'd say it's more so serviceable rather than good. Not terrible, serviceable.
I would agree with that. And I think it's because each movie you had a brand new set of characters, and they dropped them with each movie. And then the focus goes to someone else. Yeah. And I think that's like, well, how are you supposed to strengthen this human story like that? Like, because the only consistent character was Dr. Serizawa, and he's handled poorly.
Yes.
Like, there's a big scene where he sacrifices himself. Great homage to the first movie. It does serve a little bit of a purpose. That's where Godzilla gets fucking jacked, man. And something I did really like, I thought that was a really epic thing when
it was a beautiful scene.
Especially when he puts his hand on him and he's like, "Goodbye, my old friend." And I thought that was, and the Godzilla's looking at him. I thought that was great, but at the same time, it was like, man, you did not build this character. This should have been our focus. Serizawa should have been the guy thinking of all the things. Like, they're getting all these experts. Serizawa is your expert.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he treated like that? That's what I couldn't stand that about this movie, or actually about the series. And I have enjoyed this series very much. So that's my train of thought on that. Mm-hmm. But I agree with everything what you're saying. Just let me address the chat really.
Yeah, for sure.
Quickly. Tim says, "What's up, boys? Hey, Tim, how you doing, buddy?
What's
you
up?
Working tonight, buddy? I know you work a lot of night shifts. So, Danair, greetings, gentlemen. I'm watching Ghostbusters Afterlife, prepping for Frozen Empire tomorrow. Nice.
Ooh,
I hope you enjoy it.
I've been hearing some things. I'm not gonna. I mean, I haven't heard any spoiler things, but I've been hearing some weird things.
Peter says, "What's up, guys? Being
How you
a
doing,
huge
Peter?
Godzilla fan, fuck you, Peter. I'm a Kong guy. I'm getting outnumbered here. I was pleased to see how God beat the shit out of Kong and G versus K Godzilla
I mean,
for life.
in Kong's defense, he did win one round. In his
Yeah.
defense,
Tim says maybe they need Dutch and Ripley to show up, and maybe that would strengthen up the human story. Absolutely,
shit, man, I'd
it
pay
would.
for it.
I'd pay for that shit. You freaking kidding me?
You know what's
Imagine
funny? Okay, wait, I gotta mention this. I gotta mention this because I was watching Godzilla King of the Monsters today, and when they're in Antarctica, you can hear one of the soldiers say, "Get to the chopper." The irony of that, I'm sorry. I just had
Funny.
to mention that.
What would happen if Godzilla and King Kong were in a Kenny versus Benny competition?
Honestly, I would think that it would be like that one Snickers commercial where Godzilla was on a skateboard or a surfboard. That's how it would look.
That's funny. Nothing wrong with a bit of cheesy dialogue and a few good one-liners. Yep. If you got the right tone, nothing wrong with it. Daner says, who can keep a dead octopus on their head the longest?
Well, Kong did that in 1962, remember? Sort of.
That's right.
I mean, it was alive, but,
But yeah, when this movie's entertaining at the most is when the monsters are in it. They didn't get that wrong. I mean, even with a CGI fest, I thought King Ghidorah looked great.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he looked great. I love King Ghidorah. I think he's a great concept. I like the fact that he's this alien and he's fucking everything up, and this is like Godzilla putting the balance back into everything. I thought that was great. The threat of him, like how he grows his heads back and all that.
Yeah, that's new. That's something that the franchise hadn't given Ghidorah, the ability to regenerate. I mean, and that's my problem, that they give us this big threat and they kill him off by the end of the movie. Like, yeah, realistically speaking, you really couldn't have him stay on the planet because his mere presence would upset the balance. My idea would have been that, okay, he gets beaten so bad he has to retreat back into outer space, and then maybe he comes back with friends. Like, I'm not saying to go full on Godzilla Final Wars here, where you have a freaking alien spaceship come up with kung fu fighters and shit. But they introduced the concept of space monsters with King Ghidorah. I mean, that's a good start. That's a very good start. Now you can open the door to bring in a few more, and you don't have to go into complete detail like, oh, who's sending these monsters? It could be that they're out there and they happen to land on Earth, and finding a way to work it in the plot. I mean, we'll be here all night trying to do that. It's just I wasn't satisfied with the ending too much. Like, on the one hand, seeing Godzilla go burning Godzilla, like in Godzilla versus Destroya, that was awesome. That was really awesome. It's just killing off Ghidorah, arguably Godzilla's most iconic foe. He, at the very least, he's one of the most iconic foes Godzilla's fought. That's why they keep bringing him back. But to kill him off so quick, and then going into King of the Monsters, what they utilize from him is equally disappointing. And I mean, we'll get to it when we get to Godzilla versus Kong. It's just, what I think they should have done was, after Godzilla and then Kong Skull Island, where they had that teaser about Godzilla fighting Ghidorah, then they show all the other monsters. They show Rodan and Mothra on the cave paintings. They should have done a Mothra movie. They should have done a Rodan movie, and then give us King of the Monsters. And within Mothra and Rodan, give teasers about Ghidorah. Give us teasers about other things that was
there should have been a big build up. you could almost see them around in a conference room, all of them sitting around going, well, how should we play out this universe? You know what I mean? And I think it's as simple as, I don't think that they thought people would show up for just a Mothra movie, or people would show up for just um. I mean, like we've been saying, the weak characters. If they were going to put weak characters in a Mothra movie, um, see, with these movies, at least you had Godzilla, you had King Kong, but with just Mothra or what's the other one? Rodan. Um, I don't know if it would have like I would have went and seen it. I'm a monster fan though. I like these kind of movies. But
Yeah.
it's money, right? It's a business. So but you're right. I think I think it's more of a missed opportunity. I think it's a really missed opportunity, and they didn't build to this great, like, this movie should have been like the climax of all these monsters, right?
Well, let me put it to you
And
this way. Think about Marvel. And think about the characters that they brought in on the big screen that basically nobody heard of. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah,
Compared to other characters like Thor, Hulk, Iron
yeah,
Man,
I didn't know who the fuck they
Captain
were.
America. Who were the Guardians of the Galaxy? Only us nerds knew who they were and how they were. Okay. So it's not that hard of a concept or out of the realm of possibilities that they could have brought in Mothra and Rodan. Really, because at the end of the day, a lot of these movies are made to sell toys, which is ironic because that's how the mindset was back in the 90s for a lot of these comic book movies, like the Batmans. You had these movies selling lots of toys. And it's actually one of the reasons why, especially for Godzilla versus Kong, why it was so successful, because they sold toys like crazy.
Yeah.
They sold so many toys. The merchandise alone was insane. Okay. And that helped to supplement the movie. So really what the question that will be, very interesting to speculate on is how will Godzilla X Kong do? Because they've been selling toys too. I've seen them. I have one. I have one right over there. But the thing with King of the Monsters is that it showed too much in the trailers. That was one of the biggest issues, that they almost show the whole movie.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
At that point, there's almost nothing to see. But being able to plan it out, like people want to copy the Marvel formula, but every time they try and copy it, they're doing it wrong. They're shoving too much into one movie. They're doing what DC did. You had a solid foundation with Man of Steel. That was a solid foundation. You had a few Easter eggs. You had the freaking Wayne Enterprises satellite that gets blown up, right?
A Batman, it's weird, because a Batman movie should have come next.
Yeah,
it's almost like they're just, oh no, this was good, so now we're gonna go here and yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like there's just not enough build up and it's not handled properly. But in saying that, my God, like just watching it tonight, I was getting when Rodan came out of the volcano. Did he come out of the volcano?
Mm-hmm.
I think he comes out of the volcano, and that poor son of a bitch who ejects himself out of the cockpit.
I just saw that.
It goes straight into the fucking. I laugh every time I watch that.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy, but one thing I'll give the director, he really showed the size of these Titans. I thought they did that really, really, really well by showing the epic size of how big these things were, how dangerous they are, the destruction, all that kind of stuff. And that one shot of Godzilla getting juiced right up, and that's creating this whirlpool. And then you see his spikes, and he just comes up, and he's just he kind of looks at them. It was like it was almost like he's saying, that's his way of saying thank you for jacking me right up. And and I like when all the planes are fighting with him. They're all behind him now, and he's coming forward. I thought that there's some really nice shots in this movie.
Yeah, talking about that scene, there's something I always notice that you have to watch closely to pay attention to it. But when Kyle Chandler's character, Mark, that's his name, Mark Russell. So when Mark kind of comes forward a little bit to look at Godzilla, and Godzilla looks at him, you see Godzilla's eyes go from like this serious stare to kind of relaxed. And I love that, because it's almost like a sign of recognition, because the last thing Godzilla saw before he got juiced up was Serizawa touching him.
Yeah.
Godzilla was watching him when he was doing that. When he put his hand on his face, and then Godzilla looking at Mark, and they have like this kind of this nice moment.
Yep.
Man and beast. It was nice. I make of it what you will, but watching Godzilla's eyes relax, kind of like recognition or acknowledgement of humanity. It was nice. I love how, because at this point they've made Godzilla the hero. He's the good guy. He's the guy that's trying to protect the planet from this big threat that's Ghidorah, and he's trying to keep the other monsters in check.
Yeah,
it's something that I love that they carried over from 2014.
Yeah. And one thing I did like too, I like when Mothra comes out and she throws her freaking webs at the Ghidorah. I thought that was just like, oh, here comes the queen, right? And I thought she was pretty cool too. I like how you see her as a larva first, and then you see a blossom underneath the waterfall, coming out of the waterfall.
Another beautiful.
Like I said, the monsters are handled really well. I like. It's a lot better than Godzilla 2014 for me. For that, like, it's
100%.
Weak characters, yeah. I mean, they're acted well and stuff like that, but
yeah,
I'm still mixed on the idea of this whole letting all the monsters free because it needs to because human beings have wrecked this world and everything like that. I'm not sure if I even like that plot point. It seems very stupid. Although I get it. They're kind of saying like we're destroying this earth, but let's bring a bunch of monsters in. Let's see if they can, this idea that we can occupy the same space. It just, I don't know. I think I'm very mixed on it. I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't love it either from Vera Farmiga's character's point of view. Like, I thought it was like, okay, is that, I don't know. It almost seems like a stupid decision. You're letting out. I think maybe they could have let Ghidorah out in a different way. You know what I mean?
Well, really, there was no good way of releasing Ghidorah because he wasn't part of the natural balance compared to the other monsters. And I actually kind of curious because they find him in Antarctica, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how he got there. I say that because I have some information about Godzilla X Kong for a specific character. And because in Godzilla versus Kong, they're introducing, or I should say reintroducing, or, kind of expanding on the Hollow Earth story.
Yeah.
That's going to play a big part in this new movie coming out. It plays a big part in Godzilla versus Kong too.
I do like that because it's like takes me back to Journey to the Center of the Earth. A book my dad always used to talk about. So I was like, well, that's really cool. That's really cool how they got this Hollow Earth. It's like a world within a world, like the center core of the world. This where these things are. And it kind of it does explain how Godzilla gets around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do like the fact that he goes back home to recharge. But they say it could take years. I go, okay, that makes fucking sense. That kind of makes sense because that's why he's away for so long, or no one sees him for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it could explain his absence in this movie, in King of the Monsters. 5 years away, maybe because he got beat up pretty good in 2014. So him kind of staying on the down low for 5 years, it makes sense. Yeah. It helps to sort of explain that time gap.
But the Hollow Earth thing I do like, and it makes sense with this in this crazy fun world. I mean, those 50s movies, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Journey to the Center of the Earth, that's what it was all about. It was this adventure, right? So
yeah,
I do like that. Tim says, we're nerds, Lewis. Wait, that's the wrong movie. Special Agent Carter Sauce is in the house. He says, howdy.
How you doing? Hello.
How you doing, dude?
My gentlemen, my friends,
And the music got me excited because the music was missing in 2014. I
have a huge critique for Godzilla versus Kong on the soundtrack alone.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about this soundtrack. I was kind of missing Ghidorah's original theme, considering that they brought in the original themes for Godzilla and Mothra. So I was kind of missing that, but I kind of let it slide because when they played Mothra's theme, it was great. It was just fantastic. Like it was such a sweet, musical note. It was great. It was awesome. And Godzilla's theme, like when he's rising out of
Oh,
the
so
water,
good. It was so
that build
exciting.
up, I mean it was awesome. It was great. Having Godzilla's theme is fantastic. And I'm trying to hold myself back because Godzilla versus Kong irritates the hell out of me for that reason. But anyway, I love the build-up that they give when Serizawa sacrifices himself, that nice little musical note that they have there. It was good. It was emotional. It was an emotional scene. It's just I felt like we needed to have more time with him. Like if they
Yeah.
were going to kill him off, you should have saved it for the next movie, or maybe just don't kill him off at all because there really was no need to. I mean, they could have worked around certain things.
I found the humor kind of like very Roland Emmerich, like if I was watching The Day After Tomorrow or something like that. Well, actually, that's one of his better ones, I should say. But you know what I mean.
Right.
A lot of his movies had this kind of like we're in this serious situation when we're throwing like um jokes everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the scientists and everything, the way
Right.
they carry about it, it's just very cliche now. I guess it's like you know, it's like it's like a lot of these directors. They're just they don't know how to balance the tones out.
It's that
It-
Marvel humor, I think,
yeah,
because you get
exactly. You
the
know what?
same stuff
Yeah,
with
you're
Marvel,
right. But
and
you
I
know, it
think that's
doesn't.
where the criticism comes from. Because you'll have serious scenes and you have someone making a stupid joke. It's like, dude, why? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's I just don't find it that funny. Like there was a few funny spots that
yeah,
I did laugh at, but um, like when the guy says, I think we're gonna stay here. I want to have kids one day. I thought that was kind of funny,
yeah,
with the freaking radiation. But
right,
it starts getting too much, and Godzilla versus Kong does it even worse with
yeah,
those two characters who are there for amusement.
right.
Um, but yeah, I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this one. For me, I'd give it a solid B myself. I
Mm.
liked it.
Well, it had a lot of promise because yeah, it killed off Ghidorah, but if you stayed for the end credit scene, you know that Charles Dance's character fishes out the severed head of Ghidorah from when they fought in Mexico. They found his head.
Oh,
The
I
Yeah,
didn't
I
watch
mean,
that. I didn't watch after the credits.
so yeah, that was a thing, and that it had a very interesting prospect because I mean, it was a dead head, right? It wasn't
Yeah,
alive, right?
but
Though
you know,
they could have played a plot where, well, maybe Ghidorah is going to come back because maybe even though you sever his head, he just grew another one. Well, what if severed head could grow a whole other body?
yeah, yeah,
To give that sort of Hydra type characteristic for Ghidorah, which I thought would have been cool. But we know we know now what the head was used for, which is a plot. There's a plot hole with that, and I'll just start setting the seeds for it now. In this film, excuse me, in King of the Monsters, Ghidorah loses a head in Mexico. That is the head that is at the end credit scene. No other head is lost because Ghidorah's other heads were vaporized when Godzilla went thermonuclear.
yeah.
Right? That last head that we see at the end, Godzilla blows it to smithereens. He uses his atomic breath and it's turned to ash. So there's only one head of Ghidorah. And according to Godzilla versus Kong, there are two heads. There's no explanation. It's a huge plot hole. I think they might have addressed it, but I haven't looked into it. All that I know is that it was an interesting concept they were trying to go for, though it was really it was dumb. Like I didn't like it because they decided to incorporate Ghidorah with another character, which is somewhat of a callback to one of the Heisei era films,
Okay.
but
Yeah, yeah.
it's completely different, completely. And I'll explain that when we get to Godzilla versus Kong. But overall, despite all the problems that I have, this is one I enjoyed the most. Out of the entire MonsterVerse, this is the one that I love the most because it has some fan favorite moments, aspects. It has actors that I like, so that kind of helps. Something I didn't even mention was that with Mothra, they sort of reference the fairies, though in this case they're not fairies; they're twins, because the fairies were always twins in
Yeah.
the films. So in this one, they have the twins as actual twins that work for Monarch, and I thought that was a nice little reference to the
Right.
fairies with
Right.
Mothra. It was a nice way to sort of incorporate that. But yeah, I mean, if I were to give it a rating, I mean, I give it an A. That might
Yeah.
be a little high. It's just that may be pure nostalgia.
That's
Those
fun.
aspects of the
It's fun.
nostalgia influencing me. It's just I like this movie. I can
Yeah.
put it on any time and have fun with it. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
Godzilla versus Kong, it's not the same.
Okay, I'm the opposite. Let's get into Godzilla versus Kong. I couldn't. I was glued to my TV through the whole thing of Godzilla versus Kong, and I just think that's because I'm a Kong guy, and the relationship between the little girl and Kong is so heartfelt for me,
Oh, it's
anyway.
great. It's great. It's great.
I loved it. I love
With
the way they handled Kong in this, and like you said earlier, he is the best part of this. I even I do like Godzilla in it too, and even my wife and I were watching it. Godzilla's not necessarily the villain, um, not like full blown villain anyway.
yeah,
Like we get that great ending that where Godzilla kicks Kong's ass, and he had to. It had to go that way,
yeah,
or there'd be severe logic issues. Let's face it,
yeah.
right? Even my wife acknowledged that. And she was like, "Yeah," but I love when the girl referenced earlier. Kong bows to no one, and
Yeah.
even when he's beat, he just roars at Godzilla, and that they get this respect for each other. And then Godzilla comes out and saves Kong's ass in against. I'm assuming I'm not as familiar with this stuff with you, but that was Mecha Godzilla, right?
It
Yes,
was.
yes, okay.
Mhm.
Um, and the old hammer, fucking Kong with his hammer and
Right, with
evening
the
the score
axe.
and all that shit. I loved it. I loved it. But my initial thoughts: entertaining as hell. Love the action sequences. I just don't like a lot of the humorous characters in it. I thought the tone was dipping way into silliness with these characters.
Yeah,
The guy who's saying, "Oh, it's a cover up" and all that. Like, you could have just fucking axed him, and I would have been completely fine with it. Again, this family from the last movie is just sidelined in this. Not that they were
completely.
great. So you're sidelining weak characters. Like, you might as well just got rid of them
Yeah.
for this. And even Alex Skarsgård wasn't very. He was good acting, but weak character. In Skull Island, Tom Hiddleston, weak character.
Yeah.
Like, I just
There
don't.
wasn't
This,
much to him or to
yeah,
them, to
the
those
girl,
characters.
the adopted mother of the little girl, I thought was really good.
Yeah, she was
Um,
alright.
she was all right,
She
better
was
than
one of
Brie
the
Larson.
strong. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that she was the one of the stronger human characters in Godzilla versus Kong. I couldn't stand the kid from Deadpool in this movie, the chubby kid.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was in
I didn't.
Deadpool too.
You
I
know
didn't
what?
really like him. He was just sort of he was pure comic relief. He didn't serve a purpose at all.
Yeah, I didn't. I just didn't like that part of the movie. You know what I mean? I thought, the girl in Kong, like, this is where we should be. It's like a rendition of Kong picking up the blonde woman, but in
Right.
this one, she's teaching him sign language and shit, and he's
Well, I mean,
communicating more.
he
He's looking
knows.
older with the fucking beard. I thought,
Yeah, he knows sign language. I thought that was a pretty cool thing, and because Kong never really he didn't have that sort of quasi human intelligence, and for them to introduce that that he knows sign language, I thought that was a pretty cool thing. My reaction about this movie is that Kong was the best part of it. Like, he was the one that was handled the best. Um, it was like a natural progression from Kong Skull Island to to this one. And I like their relationship. The character's name is Gia. Kong and Gia. It's good. I like that. My problems lie first and foremost with Godzilla because he's acting more aggressive and he's not acting like the character that I had seen in the previous films where it's all about restoring balance. He's destroying this base, and I get what they were trying to do because it was like what with the device they used in Godzilla King of the Monsters, the Orca, giving off that frequency, and that's what was setting Godzilla off because it was Mechagodzilla, but it was more to it because it was Ghidorah.
Yeah,
they were using Ghidorah's heads to build Mechagodzilla. One head was used as the sort of where you had Dr. Serizawa's son. That Asian guy, that's Serizawa's son. Okay. Yeah. So they had him hook up to this device that was hooked up to one of Ghidorah's skulls. And according to the conspiracy theorist guy, they have another skull in Mechagodzilla's head. And I'm thinking to myself, where the hell did they get the second head from? That's never explained. There's only one head. If they had said, oh yeah, we're using King Ghidorah's head in Mechagodzilla, it's like, okay, fine. Not at all how I would have handled Mechagodzilla. For one thing, Mechagodzilla had no proper buildup. They should have had hints in the previous movies to say, yeah, you know what? If Godzilla were ever to turn on humanity, we need to have a weapon that's like Godzilla that can, stand a chance against him. You plant the seeds early on, and then give us the movie where it's like, boom, Mechagodzilla.
I'm feeling a lot of DC vibes. The same kind of, if Superman ever turns on us, well, we need something. The Justice League,
right?
No, but I'm feeling a lot of the same vibes, kind of. But yeah, it's like I said, it was a fun time and everything. And you're talking about the continuity too, off screen, that you didn't like. First of all, though, Tim Says Day After Tomorrow, wicked movie. Yeah, one of his better ones, I would say. So, from that director. But obviously, on a bunch of rewatches, this movie may come down for me.
Yeah.
But as it sits now, it's maybe probably my favorite one out of the series.
It's not terrible. I just, as a Godzilla fan, as someone who has been waiting to see these characters get the sort of American interpretation to a certain extent, to have it done right. They throw a lot of these things, and I'm going back to Godzilla King of the Monsters for a minute. They throw in the oxygen destroyer. And it's one of those things where there was no proper fanfare. There was no proper buildup. There was no hints about it. Like, you really didn't need to have the oxygen destroyer in this movie. Or in that movie, right?
No, well,
they really put it in there as like a bit of fan service because we know about the oxygen destroyer. That was created by the Toho Serizawa, right?
Yeah. But not only that, like they shoehorned it in there. All of a sudden, it said we've been designing a weapon. Oh, who knew? I said, but that's what destroys Godzilla. And then they shoehorned another thing, and he has a home where the radiation is and he can recharge, which I did like, don't get me wrong, but it was like the whole idea of the oxygen destroyer was to defeat Godzilla.
Right.
That's the only way to do it. And Serizawa's sacrifice meant more. Let's put it that way. It meant a lot more.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's like a lot of things in these movies are shoehorned in or just added with wasn't hinted at. And
in the case of Mechagodzilla, that is a huge deal. Because unlike the oxygen destroyer, which is like a minor inconvenience when you think about it, Mechagodzilla is a full-blown villain that's introduced towards the end. It's hinted at throughout the movie, fair enough. It's just, he is there, and this is the fourth movie in this Monsterverse? It's too early. We don't have, another thing that really pissed me off is that in King of the Monsters, you had all these other monsters at the end that we had seen in the Mass Awakening. But in King of the Monsters, or not King of the Monsters, in Godzilla versus Kong, in the title sequence, the whole intro, they're showing that these monsters were defeated. I guess they
Yeah.
died. They killed them. And I'm thinking
I found that weird too. I was like,
they
they didn't
killed
all
every
die.
single one. They killed off Rodan off screen. That's Rodan. All these other monsters were created for the Monsterverse, but that's Rodan. Why would you kill off Rodan?
Yeah.
You know?
It felt kind of weird. I'm like, well, because they were all bowing to him at the end.
Yeah.
So I just assumed they would live, go off to their whatever they do,
To their
the Hollow
habitats,
Earth or
homes, whatever. I mean,
whatever. But I was like, what? They're all dead now. I found that too. Like, I do have a bit of problems with the movie, but I'm just saying that the Kong carries you through it and just
this is
makes
what
it better
they
than maybe than it should be.
this is what they could have done. They could have had it to where Mechagodzilla was already built, and it was Mechagodzilla that was killing off all the other Titans.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Now
That's a good
there
idea.
was a theory or rumors early on that Mechagodzilla was going to function in a similar way to how he functioned in the very first Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. So, a little bit of a spoiler for that one. When they first introduced Mechagodzilla back in 73 or 74, I can't remember. But when they first introduced him and you see him for the first time, he looks like Godzilla. He's literally a Terminator Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like, he has a full-on Godzilla skin. He has his own radioactive breath. What you would think is radioactive breath. He has his own roar. You think it's Godzilla, but there's something off. And then when the real Godzilla shows up and starts fighting him, his skin starts chipping off. It's a Terminator. It's a Terminator Godzilla. So there was rumors going around early on that, oh yeah, the Godzilla you're seeing in the trailer, that's not actually Godzilla because he wouldn't be acting so aggressive. And I was kind of buying into that. It's like, yeah, that is kind of weird. Why is Godzilla acting like such an ass? Because that's what he is. Compared to how he acts in King of the Monsters, there is a big difference. He is a lot more reckless and aggressive. Like, he doesn't care about the humans he's killing. And technically, you could say he never really did per se, because in 2014, when he showed up in Hawaii, that whole tsunami, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was caused by him. I mean, he didn't intentionally do it. He wasn't trying to kill people. And even in King of the Monsters,
maybe just finding a better balance, how to balance the character out better.
It's just I'm not a fan of making him more of an ass in this movie.
Yeah. Tim says, could you imagine if they took Godzilla and Kong and crossed it over Planet of the Apes? King would have some fucking backup. Oh, I would say.
Well,
so.
there's actually something funny about that. So in the trailers for Godzilla X Kong, they're showing other apes, and I was getting some Planet of the Apes vibes, like Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes vibes.
Yeah.
So there might be something to that in a way. But yeah.
Movie Jeff is here. Said, hey guys. Hey Jeff, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're well and safe and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see this version of Kong being developed, because he gets developed pretty well.
I think this is my favorite iteration of the character, like out of all of them, just because of how he's handled. Like, they give him more personality.
Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, I think I'm gonna grow to really like this Kong, even though I'm still a huge fan of Peter Jackson's Kong, but he's kind of a different Kong completely.
Yeah,
the MonsterVerse Kong is kind of like, he's the best balance of both of them, I think.
Yeah,
and like, he's vicious, destructive, but yet sensitive and very caring. And hey, we haven't talked the action sequences, man. I mean, that scene on where they got Kong chained up, and I'm just like, would someone cut this motherfucker loose, man? Godzilla's coming. I thought it was handled well, because I thought, okay, you're on Godzilla's territory. He's definitely got the advantage because of the water.
Right.
I thought Kong held his own pretty good. and near the end, now you're on Kong's. He's got the advantage to this fight. But I thought with the ships and everything, and going under the water, and Kong's chained up, and all, I thought the action sequences were very, very good in this.
Yeah, no, they were good. Especially the fight that they have in Hong Kong,
Yes,
their second encounter, you could say. That fight was awesome. The
yeah,
the contrast with the neon lights was really
yeah.
cool. Seeing when Kong is coming out from that hole from the Hollow Earth, he slams down the axe and just slam on the ground. It just that was so cool. I loved it. It was awesome. And then when they fight Mechagodzilla together, I thought that was pretty cool. My only thing is the soundtrack, and I know we'll get to it here in a bit, but other than that, I love the fights. They were pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
cool.
That's worth the money itself, and I'm sure the one this week coming out is going to be great in that regard. Same director and everything.
I'm hearing that there's a lot of kaiju fights. Like there are a lot of fighting, giant monsters fighting. That's what I'm hearing.
That's good. That's good. So, yeah. Now, are we under the assumption this is the last one? Or
it depends on how well this movie does, because the director did come out and say that he's ready to tell more stories in this.
Well, I'm just thinking, if you're killing off all the Titans,
the thing is, though, they killed off all the Titans we saw in King of the Monsters, but we know there are others, because the Hollow Earth has been. We saw it like in Godzilla vs. Kong, when they get into the Hollow Earth, there's quite a few creatures down there. And Godzilla X Kong showing us the new villain, that's another monster. Who knows how many other monsters are in the Hollow Earth? So I don't think that they're going to be losing out of all the monsters. I mean, they're not, because we're seeing it in real time. Yeah. We saw it in the Hollow Earth. So even though they did release a trailer that was celebrating an entire decade of these films starting from 2014, depending on how well Godzilla X Kong does will really determine, if we're going to get more in this universe, or are they going to cap it off with Godzilla X Kong and then they're going to start something new. I think that Godzilla -1 helped for Godzilla in America, because that movie was so good. It got Godzilla on the radars of the average audience. So
yeah, it might help it. People, who watch that and go, you know what, I'm going to go watch Godzilla X Kong.
I mean, they might be disappointed, but as far as because of how good -1 and its story was, you're not gonna get that same thing with Godzilla X Kong, and that's okay. You don't have to have every movie be like -1. It's just it's gonna definitely get Legendary and Warner Brothers to rethink how they're handling these Godzilla movies. Like if they choose to continue the MonsterVerse after Godzilla X Kong, I think -1 is going to make them think okay, maybe we need to take the human story a little bit more seriously than we have been, because there is a way to balance the human action and the drama with the monster action.
Yeah,
there is a nice middle ground, which -1 did.
Yeah,
for the story that they told, they did a really good job. So they can do that again in a similar vein. You just have to.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of work to be done. I hope that Godzilla X Kong is successful, because the last thing I want is for this franchise to die off. When we're sort of in its. Really, it just feels like just the beginning. Like we only have 6 films in the franchise. That's not much. Especially compared to Marvel. DC, even to a certain extent. I mean,
well, if they did what you said they should have done, we wouldn't be at this level yet. We'd be probably only at Godzilla King of the Monsters right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, I do agree with you on that. I think there should have been more monster build up, monster movies. Like have a Mothra movie, have a King Ghidorah movie, maybe how he even got here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How And yeah, there's a lot. If you're into this franchise like you are, like you're a diehard Godzilla fan, then you know, you're probably pretty excited about all this stuff and that it's getting popular. And I mean, I think it's always been popular. But I mean, it's a
Popular here in the
Godzilla's
States it's
different.
becoming new now because
Yeah.
of minus one. Minus one, uh, I wasn't expecting it to get the recognition that it did because in over 70 years of Godzilla films, Godzilla finally got an Oscar. And I don't really much care for award shows. That being said, to have a foreign film like Godzilla get recognition like that, it was a long time coming. Long time coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Considering for
Yeah.
sure.
Uh,
Um,
it opens the door for a lot. Hopefully.
Hey, Ginger Ninja, how's it going?
Hello there.
He says,
How you
"How's
doing?
it going? How are you, man? I hope you're doing well." But yeah, these are both great movies. Like fun. I look at this franchise as being fun.
Mhm.
That they've done with the MonsterVerse. I mean, it could have been handled a lot worse as far as I'm concerned. So, um, I mean, at least there's no freaking nothing crammed down your throat. Really, they knew what the material was, and they just said, you know what, let's just entertain them with some popcorn fun. You know, I'll
Mhm.
take that over having woke messages crammed down my throat. So,
Yeah, 100%. So, soundtrack.
take it, man. Tell me about it.
The Godzilla theme they use, I hate it. I
I don't
like
remember it. So that's
it. So, yeah,
probably
that's a good
uh,
indicator.
that's
First
a
and
good indicator.
foremost, first and foremost, it's generic as hell. It's very generic. And the comments from the director of the film also irritate me because he said, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he said that he's not married to the Godzilla theme because this is not the same Godzilla from Toho. Therefore, he doesn't feel that he needs to have both of those together because this is a different iteration of the character.
But that
It's,
you know what that's it's just it adds the excitement. It has that call it nostalgia, call it what you want. I mean, it's like don't get me wrong with Prey that come out, the last Predator movie. I did enjoy that western kind of vibe sound going, but it would have been great if they would have done a tribal, even them on the Native Americans on the drums going dun 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 dun, dun like doing something where you was
yeah,
like, oh cool, what a cool rendition of the Predator soundtrack. Like, you know what I mean? If they would have done something, I that would have got me a lot more excited than the music that was there.
yeah,
It would just fed into your nostalgia, and so to say that, you know, oh, this is like the Friday the 13th remake, that's one of the biggest problems with it is that the music's not there. It sounds like a freaking rave that you're at a rave. Boom, boom.
yeah.
And I thought, you know, with Jason crashing through the woods, and you would have had that freaking dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun. You know what I mean? It would
Hmm.
have just it would have been great. So I think that's kind of a silly comment. I'm just like,
Well, okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in one aspect. It's like, okay, you don't want to use the Toho Godzilla theme because you don't feel you're married. Like it's not the same version of Godzilla that Toho has given us, right? Okay, fine. Why didn't you use the Godzilla theme from 2014 then? Godzilla had his own theme in 2014
yeah.
in the opening. Yeah, you could have used that theme. I
Yeah.
mean, that would have been a nice.
It's
callback
kind of funny that Michael Dougherty used the class, but he used it sparingly too. Like
Yeah,
I like where he
it's
injected
there.
it.
It's
Yeah.
there. The soundtrack overall in King of the Monsters, I think, is better than Godzilla versus Kong because the Godzilla versus Kong theme, like for Godzilla, was generic as hell, and I was thinking to myself, where the hell is the Godzilla theme? Like so much so that I edited music into some of the scenes, like not so much of the classic Godzilla theme, but Godzilla themes from Toho's movies. I incorporated it into some of the scenes for Godzilla versus Kong, And I'm like, my God, this is 10,000 times better. Why didn't they use parts of the Godzilla theme? Did they run out of money? And then I think to myself, you know what? Maybe they did, because they spent so much money on certain special effects. Maybe they should have, dialed some of it back just a little bit, just so you can have money for the damn theme song. It's iconic. You say it's not the same character, therefore you're not going to use the music. It's like, well, it's already been used. And then if you don't want to use that same theme, use the theme from 2014, because that's the same character. It's all the same character. The soundtrack is there, but they give us this generic ass theme song, and I'm like, what the hell is this? What happened to the Godzilla theme? What happened? Look, I'm watching the scene right now where he's coming up from the whirlpool, having that music hit as he's rising up. You don't get that epic feel. Like, you'll like this. I got to share it with you sometime. I have to find a way to send it to you. But I incorporated soundtrack bits from King Kong 2005 into Godzilla vs. Kong. Preferably towards the end where Kong's about to get, or where Godzilla's about to get taken out by Mechagodzilla and Kong saves him. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna send it to you. And like the soundtrack overall, I was very disappointed with it. There wasn't much in there that I enjoyed, especially compared to King of the Monsters. And it's just a shame because overall, Godzilla vs. Kong is a fun movie. Yeah, it's just soundtrack really helps to sell scenes.
Oh yeah. Your music's the heartbeat of any film.
Yeah,
I mean, it's any movie pre-edited. If you saw the way these scenes played out without music, they'd be nothing. They'd be lifeless.
Yeah,
like I would love to see unedited music in a lot of these films that we watch.
Shit, man! I mean, fucking copies of it so I can incorporate my own music when I want to.
Shit, Predator alone. I can almost guarantee you, if you were to watch Predator, not with the sound off, but if you could take the music out, I bet you that movie would feel a lot longer and slower than it does, because that music is pushing everything forward. You know what I mean? With the and then while they're walking through the jungle. Right. It's everything. It's everything, man. Tim says certainly not going to go with anything dramatic with these monster movies. Just have fun with them, watch them kick the holy out at each other. But music score definitely helps build it up. Yeah, it's your musical score is so important. I remember Spielberg saying once when he did Jaws. And he says, I like to put everything into John Williams' hands because then I don't have to worry about anything. So John Williams gets on his piano. He starts going, okay, well, Steve says, show me what you got. Dun, 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 dun. 2 notes, just going like this. Fuck, is that it? That's what you're showing me? No, Steven. He says, what you have here is a nice little adventure film. This is all it needs. It's going to work so well. Steven Spielberg didn't think it was going to work. A guy playing 2 notes through the whole thing. That's it. A child could fucking play it. Like I'm not kidding you. Like I could sit there on the guitar and go dun, 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 but put it in that music, it works so well. Put it in the movie, the way it's driving the movie. And that's why John Williams is a genius, because he knows when to be simple, when not to be.
Yeah.
And that's your score, it could almost break your movie in some ways.
Yeah.
Like there are some great movies actually but the score is like, ooh man, I wish that score, I can't think of any off the top of my head except for the one you're talking about now. I can't really think of it now, but there are some I have seen where it's like, man, I wish there was a better score to this movie. Yeah. But most great movies usually do have good scores that follow, or iconic ones.
It's like you said, it's the heartbeat of a film.
Yeah. Ginger Ninja says, without a good score underlying the spectacle before our eyes, it won't have the same impact. It makes you feel. 100%. It makes you feel. Imagine Rocky without that great music to it. Like, just imagine, just imagine how maybe that would have never worked. If that would have been a different score, just think how him going up the steps and everything. If it didn't have that real triumphant feel, it could have broke it. Like
Yeah.
it could have not have been as good.
Without going into spoilers, Godzilla minus one soundtrack is fantastic. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
especially when
dude,
Godzilla's on
I,
screen,
I'm
like
waiting.
you're going to feel
Yeah,
Godzilla in that movie with that soundtrack that they have. The impact there is just it is insane.
I am waiting for the day they announce the American or Canadian release on Blu-ray. I'm waiting, and I kicked myself. I should have stuck out and went and saw it when I had the chance, man.
Yeah,
It's I'm excited about it. There'll be definitely be I'll definitely review that one when it comes out. But before we get going though, Caleb, on these both movies,
mm.
let's talk about the new one coming out. What has to happen for you to like it? What aspects of the movie do you want to see?
Well, for one thing, build on Kong's character because at this point, with Godzilla versus Kong and the lack of a good solid human cast, Kong is our focus. He's our hero in this franchise right now until they decide to dial back Godzilla's aggression and just general assholeness. you know, um, give Kong build on Kong's relationship, and I think that's what they're going to do because something that Kong Skull Island did a great job of is showing kind of how lonely he is. Like when he
Oh
lost
yeah,
his parents and him being the
yeah,
last of his species, but with the trailers showing off some things, you know, especially like in Godzilla versus Kong, where Gia is told to tell Kong that some of his family might be down in the Hollow Earth, and that gets him running. We're
yeah,
following
yeah,
Kong and his desire to belong, right? To have family. Kong is a driving force at this point, so they need to make sure to nail that, which I think they will. I think they will do that. Another thing, Godzilla. Like they seem to be doing some pretty interesting things with Godzilla. One thing I don't want them to do, and I'm somewhat worried that they will, is that they might kill off Godzilla. Like I just have that feeling that they might do something like that. And it's like, don't kill off Godzilla because even though Kong is the character that we're following for the most part, he's still the face of this franchise because it all started with Godzilla. So don't kill off Godzilla. Give us a good balance between Kong and Godzilla where they're not going to be fighting again for the whole thing. I don't think they will. I mean, the trailers have been showing what's going to be happening for the
Well,
most.
I think I saw one thing where it's Godzilla is or Kong's going to Godzilla to enlist him in something like he's come with
Well,
me kind of. I don't know
yeah.
how exactly they play it out, but it looks like they're definitely they're not going to be on the unless unless there's some kind of um
Well, the way they
there-
end it, they sort of have like a mutual understanding of each other because
yeah,
yeah, they're both at their wits' end. But I feel like if Godzilla wanted to finish off Kong, he probably could have. Like
yeah,
he might have had enough energy to do so, but he left him alone. He's like, you know what? Fine. We fought Mecha Godzilla together. You saved my life. I saved yours. We're square. You know,
mm,
in a way, we kind of got each other's back. Of course, Kong goes to the Hollow Earth, so he's kind of out of Godzilla's territory. They're both a balance, and
yeah,
that's another thing is that don't get rid of Kong either. I think that would be a huge mistake if they decide to kill off
yeah,
Kong, which I don't think they're going to do anyway. It's just in case, right?
yeah,
Like don't get rid of Kong, don't get rid of Godzilla because they've decided to kill off every other recognizable monster from the franchise,
yeah,
i.e., Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah. It's only Godzilla and Kong left
yeah.
because I feel like people aren't going to go see a MonsterVerse film that doesn't have a recognizable monster in it.
Yeah, you
Like
gotta have.
they
I think you're right. I think you gotta have them in it,
have at
or
least one of those characters, something that the audience can kind of cling on to and say, "Yeah, I remember this character. Maybe the movie will be good because it has this
yeah,
character in it." It
yeah,
used to
because
be where the actor would sell the film, But in this case, because the human cast isn't really the strongest, all right, the monsters are the selling point now. So give us a recognizable monster, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to spun off to Godzilla and Kong now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they'll go back to having their separate movies.
They probably
then-
will. I would imagine
And then
that.
team up again in another movie. I don't
Right.
know. I mean, you know what? You put enough smart writers in it, you could do a lot.
Yeah.
You could still do a lot, but it's it's been fun. It's been fun. Let me get Tim's message here. And I agree with you. I think you gotta. That's what I want to see too. I want to see some good action and a lot of it, and I want to see that relationship between the girl and Kong still because they left it like that where Kong was going on his walk and they're all like watching him and they're starting to become like a family kind of thing. Like Kong's
Mhm.
starting to get this human family, and I do like that. Tim says the score is so important, or soundtrack. When you hear it on the radio, it reminds you what movie it's from. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's other than the next movie coming out, that's going to conclude our March Monsterthon here on Backtrack Cinema, everyone. And I appreciate you guys all sticking with me. I know this has kind of been irregular content. I don't usually do live reviews and stuff like that, so we'll be going back to a normal schedule in April with the Planet of the Apes movies, which I'm going to start watching this week. So I'm going from Kong to Planet of the Apes. Will be an easy transition, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I got some nice watch parties coming up. Friday the 13th Part 4, Back to the Future. So yeah, and Caleb, I thank you for doing this collab this month. This has been a lot of fun, and once we both see it, we'll try and hop on and do and talk about the new one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to take the wife out Saturday night to go see it, so
Okay.
maybe we can hop on next week and talk about it
Yeah, for sure.
quickly. But yeah, this has been great, man. I think we should do something like this again in the future.
Oh, 100%. This was fun. 100%. For us on the Dark Aether Files side of things, we're going to finish off March of the Monsters this Friday, watching one of my other favorite Godzilla films in the franchise, Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla from 2002. This one is going to be much more grounded than a lot of the previous entries that we've watched. It's not going to have the crazy insanity of Godzilla Final Wars.
That fucking movie was fucking on cocaine, man.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla is a lot more grounded. It feels a little bit more like the 54 film in certain cases. It has a really good human story, a good main protagonist that you follow. It's good. I love it. It's one of my favorites in the franchise. It's not going to have that silly humor like in King Kong versus Godzilla. You're not going to have the insanity of Final Wars. This is something a lot more grounded, and it's also a direct sequel to the 1954 film. So that's something to look forward to this Friday. And that will cap off March of the Monsters for us.
What do you guys got planned for April?
April, we're going back to our regularly scheduled programming. I believe Carter wants to fire up his Magic Projector watch-along series. I think we're going to be watching Twister. That will be one of the first movies we're going to be watching. I also am still working on a critique of Terminator Dark Fate Part 3. I'm just waiting to hear back from someone about doing sending in their video essay, if you will. And I'll be getting that video out sometime in April, I'd say.
Nice.
Probably mid-April. I don't want to take too long on it because I've been promoting it again. I want to make sure I deliver on it because it's been a long time coming. Last time I did it, as in last time I touched the Dark Fate review, it was actually April last year. So it's kind of coming back a year later to continue it and hopefully get it finished before the year's out. That's sort of the the plan for that. War and Pop Culture will come back as well. Danner's Dumpster is going to come back. So just getting back into the swing of things that aren't Godzilla. But still, I'll say this, that when Godzilla -1 does come out on home media, going to have to touch on it again.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it's like if you want to collab on that, because so much good about -1. Like,
Oh yeah, well, I'll yeah, once I watch it, I'll probably pop a review out, depending on when it comes out. So
right.
for sure, but yeah, this was a lot of fun again. But I do have to go, everyone.
Yeah.
But this was fun doing these live. Honestly, I've actually really enjoyed doing them live. It's easier on my editing, that's for sure. But
Mhm.
but I'll be going back to normal, guys, in April for sure. So I'm trying to get my trying to plan everything out. So yeah, look forward to some Planet of the Apes reviews coming soon, and other stuff too. I got some ranking videos I want to get done. I'm working up to my top 100 movies of all time, but I want to do my top 50 90s movies first, because I've done top 50 80s, top 50 90s want to get out, and um that's pretty much a good base for my top 100 films of all time. Even though there'll be a lot of modern movies in there, because I do. Don't get me wrong, I do like. And when I say modern, I mean past 2000. So even though a movie's 20 years old almost, I still consider that pretty modern. Um, but yeah, so you guys all have a good night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting Caleb's channel and my channel, and look forward to a lot more content in the future. And I appreciate every one of you. And I bid you farewell. See you later, and I see you in the movies. Cheers.